What's up, guys? Welcome back to Size, Strength, and Bro Science. I'm your host, Neil Austin, better known as Big Freakin' Neil, and I am super excited for my guest today. I'm joined by someone who was once just the next door neighbor to my in-laws and is now so much more. My good friend, awesome clients. Let's see. Mother of three?
Four.
Oh my gosh. Even more impressive. Competitor, bikini competitor, mom-trepreneur on a mission. My good friend, Brittany Young. So yeah, before we dive into the X's and O's, why don't we just take a minute and I'll give you the floor and let you sort of talk about who you are, what you do now, your competition history, all that jazz.
Sure. So, like Neil said, my name's Brittany. I am a stay-at-home mom to our 4 kiddos. We are a blended family. We have a 13-year-old, 2 10-year-olds, and a 2-year-old. So we have a big mix of a little bit of everything.
Wide range.
Previously, I was an administrator for a hospital, but recently decided to stay home and run a home-based business so we could be home with the kids. Perfect timing with COVID and all of the things and the kids homeschooling. So now I am running a business from home, homeschooling 4 kids, doing all of the things. I competed this very time last year at the Northwest Championships. And
has it really only been 1 year?
I know. It feels like it was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I know. All the memories popped up on my, my news feed and social media. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it feels like forever ago.
It's been a long year.
Yeah, right. It has. Yeah.
That's wild. Okay.
So I competed in the bikini competition, my first ever competition. And I decided in the beginning, I was just going to do the regular open class. And then at the pretty much like 3 weeks before, I think it was, I decided to compete in all of the classes I could because I wanted to maximize my chances. It's funny because as I started to prepare to compete, my goals were different in terms of what I wanted to get out of it.
Sure.
And what I expected. And so as we got closer, I decided to compete in all 3 classes that I could. So I did, what was it?
You
novice.
Did open, novice.
I had to write it down because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even remember. See, that's how long ago it feels. So I placed 5th in novice.
Okay. That's
3rd in, 5th in true novice, 5th in true novice, 3rd in novice, and 3rd in the open, which the open is based on your age group. I was pretty pumped. Yeah. I mean, as we got closer to the show day, I was like, you know what? I just want to place in one category. I just want to place in one category. That's all I want.
Let alone all 3.
And I placed in all 3 and I was so pumped. I was so excited.
Mm-hmm.
Show day was probably my favorite day of the process for sure. Yeah. And I think it's everybody's really, I mean, especially when you place, right? You can say that, Neil, you know how that feels.
It's a fun experience when everything goes as planned like that, for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's interesting. So you said that your goals sort of changed the closer you got to the show. So was that sort of like, at the beginning, was it more like, oh, I just want to get up there, like just be on stage?
Yeah. So being a mom of 4, so like I said, we're a blended family. I have physically had 3 children, one to which we lost. Mm-hmm. So having carried 3 children and gaining all of the weight and doing all of the things, my stomach is destroyed. Like I have stretch marks like crazy. And my goal in the very beginning was to get on stage with stretch marks.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget when I told my parents, and my dad's probably going to kill me for sharing this, but my dad was like, "Are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
Like, you have all those stretch marks." And I'm like, "You know what, Dad? I know you didn't mean that in a hurtful way, but that's exactly why I'm doing this. I want to show moms that regardless of your body, you're capable of doing whatever the hell you want. It doesn't matter."
Yeah.
So my goal in the beginning was just to step on stage like a badass, having had 3 babies, having all the stretch marks. And yeah, there were a few women on stage with me that had stretch marks, but mine were by far the most victorious.
Yeah.
Like I toted those. And like I said, as we got closer to showdown, I'm like, you know what? I'm working hard. I was religious to a fault with my meal plan. I did not cheat at all. I only drank the wine I was allowed. I only ate the things I was allowed. I did not stray from my fitness. And I was like, you know what? I'm putting in all this work. I'm getting up there to show women they can do it too.
Yeah.
I want a place, damn it. I want to bring home a trophy. I want to not only show women they can do this, but they can win at doing this. Yeah. So that's kind of how my goals like morphed along the way. And it's funny because, you know, after getting off stage and having won, you have this adrenaline, this high of like, I'm going to go for my pro card. You know, it's like, I'm going to do it. You know? And that is definitely not in my vision anymore.
Sure.
But it's really interesting how you ride the roller coaster of prep and competing and how your goals change and how you make these realizations of what you want to do and how you want to impact others by what you're doing.
Yeah. So was that mental switch was it a result of sort of like, as you started to see results from the nutrition and the training? By the way, guys, I don't even know if we've said this yet. I prepped Brittany for this show and she did all of this, all the workouts, everything from home. You were like the original poster child for what everyone's doing now with the COVID shutdowns and stuff. But yeah, just like you said, you were extremely vigilant on all the nutrition, all the training. I remember you asked all the right, like really nitpicky questions that when a coach hears those questions, that's like a telltale sign of like, no, this person is really has the attention to detail. They're really putting in the work. And yeah, I was never worried about you cheating on your diet, nothing like that, because you were always like really on top of it, which was awesome. Yeah. So
my philosophy was like, if I'm paying for someone to train me, if I'm all in on this, I'm going to be all in on this. And at the time, our 2-year-old was 1, right? And I couldn't go to a gym. I had, other kids to get to and from school. And we had just bought all of these weights and I had my Peloton and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this from home because I can wake up early. I can get it done. And it just worked out perfect.
Can you describe for people exactly the extent of the equipment you were working with? Because I think probably a lot of people, when they hear that, they're envisioning like, oh, you've probably got like the best home gym setup ever. You've probably got barbells and cables and all this fancy stuff. What were you working with the whole time?
So like I said, we have the Peloton bike. And then, I don't know, probably 3 years ago, we got the weight bench from Costco that came with a complete weight set. So we have weights from 5 pounds to 30 pounds. Yep. Just dumbbells. And then I have resistance bands. And that's it.
That's it. That's all it took.
And
I'm actually going to hunt for a picture just so people can see what you ended up looking like on stage, because you looked awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Let's see. Yeah, that just goes to show you, I think now more than ever, obviously people are trying to put together home gyms. And I think in people's minds, it's like they're just sort of desperately trying to maintain, and in their minds, it's like they can't actually progress at home. They can only just grasp at straws. Yeah. And barely just sort of skirt by until gyms open up again. But here's you who not only got by, but prepped for a show with minimal equipment. That's just awesome. It's awesome what you were able to accomplish with that.
And I remember Neil would message me like, well, do you have this? Can you get your hands on this? And it was always just like, well, I can try, but it won't be here in time. Like by the time it's here, we won't need it anymore or whatever the case was. So we literally worked with dumbbells and a bike.
Yeah.
And, I mean, and even in the beginning, I was like, are you sure this is going to work? I mean, I know you know what you're doing, but I'm worried this isn't going to work. Like, is 8 weeks really enough time? Which to me, like, that blew me away.
Yeah.
The results that I got in 8 weeks. I mean, like you said, when we were training, when you dial in the nutrition and the workouts, it's amazing what you can do. Amazing.
The other thing is your entire prep was 8 weeks, which is just awesome. Just awesome.
Crazy.
All right. So you are second from the right here. That was which class was this?
That was the open class.
Open class. Okay. So you placed third here.
Yeah.
And just looked amazing. And this was after an 8-week prep done completely from home with what? So you're one kid is older. So 3 little kids run around the whole time. Like, it's just amazing. Yeah. It's amazing what you're able to accomplish.
Yeah. And I mean, you can see in that picture, most of the women, pretty much all of the women have their stomachs are flatter and more toned than mine. I mean, you can see, I can see because it's like my biggest pet peeve. You can see my C-section there. Like it's there. Like, and I'm up there. Like anyone can do it. You guys, you're like seriously
rocking it. Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. Okay. So you just touched on it briefly when you said that when you came off stage, you're kind of riding the high of like, oh, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to get my pro card. Yeah. And then that didn't stick. What was it like after the show for you? What was your experience post show?
So like I said, after, getting off stage, you're just so pumped, walking away with 3 trophies and 3 crowns is a damn good feeling. I can't lie about that. It's amazing. And I remember coming home and talking to you and talking to Mark, who was my posing coach, and saying, I think I'm going to go for my pro card. Yeah. And this is after, the big cheat meal afterwards, which was epic. But then you wake up the next morning, and not a lot of people talk about this. And I mean, you kind of have an inclination. I mean, that you're going to wake up after show day and you're going to look different. You're not going to look like you did when you were on stage. And if you've competed before, when you go in for prejudging, you look different from the big show. Yeah. And I didn't even know that difference going into it, but you do, because, you have a little bit of food before the big show. But when you wake up after show day in general, all of that water that you've drained from your body is back. Yeah. Because not only did you have a big cheat meal, but you probably had a couple of drinks. Yep. And that's normal, as you should. You worked your butt off. But to me, I knew that I wasn't going to look the way I did on show day. And my goal, like I said, wasn't to get in the best shape of my life. It was to get on stage and show women they could do it too. Yeah. But regardless of knowing going into it that you aren't going to look the same, when you wake up that next day, it's still devastating. Oh yeah. That you don't look as cut as you did, even if you're not going to. Like I said, I had a small grasp that I wasn't going to be as cut and as lean as I was on show day, but it was still a little bit of shock to my system. Right. And as you go on, I am such a routine oriented person, and having someone tell me what workout to do, what to eat was like a dream. Because I didn't have to put any effort into my meal plan. I didn't, and I've always been a meal planner. I've always meal prepped. I always have. It's just how I am. And I've always been relatively active and fit.
Right.
So having someone do all the work for me was fabulous. But then when you wake up the next day and you go into the next week, I'll be raw here. I didn't know what to eat.
Yeah.
To the point where I was like, if I eat this, am I going to be like 10 pounds bigger? Like what's going to happen? You know, like I was in a space where I just didn't know what to do next. Yeah. Like it was enough for me to wake up, try and ride my Peloton. And I'm like, okay, well, I know if I eat eggs, like that's a good choice for breakfast, right? And it seems silly, right? Like I have 4 kids. I'm a physically fit person. I should know how to take care of myself and what to put in my body, right? Like it seems so silly. But when you're so set on a routine and a structure, it's like you're thrown back into normal life and you're like, wait, what is this again? Like, how do I do this? What's happening? So it took me a minute. And that downfall, that crash after competing was like, you know what? I don't know if I can do that again. I don't know if I can lean myself out that way and eat all those pickles and wake up like, borderline depressed. Like, I don't know if I want to put myself through that. I don't know if I want to put my husband through that again. And so for me, the next phase for me was just getting back to a healthy space in between. Yeah. You know, I don't want to look like I did I want to look better than I looked on stage. I want to look like a healthy version of that. Because when you're on stage, you're depleted. You are dehydrated. So my goal since then has just to be the healthiest version of myself for my kids and for myself. So, and that's been a whole new journey in itself because I've jumped on the wagon of being a vegetarian, and that's just been fun. But I think that it's unfortunate that it's not talked about.
I agree.
The lows of competing. Like, no one tells you you're going to wake up, you're going to feel different. I mean, everyone knows in the back of their head, you're not going to look the same, but it's one of those things you don't believe it until you see it. And then you're like, oh shit, what now? Yeah. It's exactly like that for me.
The other part of that too, is you don't anticipate, at least for me, you don't anticipate how much you're going to care.
Yes.
Because you hear ahead of time and ahead of time, like, okay, when I devour this large pizza after my show, of course that's going to affect how I look the next day. But I'm not going to care because I'll have already won or had whatever result. And then I can just sort of flip that switch and be normal again and not be worried about how my abs look the next day. And it just doesn't work like that. Like you still, like maybe you can flip that switch for that meal, but then when you wake up the next day, that switch is flipped back and you're like, no, I totally get that. I totally agree that it's not talked about enough. Just the process of getting back to normal, whatever that means. And like I'll be honest. It's been, let's see, just over 3 weeks exactly since I was on stage. And my relationship with food is still super jacked up right now. I haven't really truly been able to enjoy a meal since the first meal after I got off stage, honestly, because it's so ingrained in your brain at that point, how you're looking at your food and how it's going to impact how you look and how much water you're going to hold after you eat whatever the thing is. That even if you are able to eat these foods now and you don't have a show you're preparing for, it sucks enjoyment out of it because it's in the back of your head all the time. Yeah. So I agree that needs to be talked about more, because I think when any kind of competitor, bodybuilders, bikini competitors, physique competitors, whoever, whenever they talk about prepping, it's always, oh, the food kind of sucks. The food's boring. I'm hungry. But no one ever really talks about the psychological impact that it has, or very few people do.
Yeah.
Especially after a show. I don't hear that talked about hardly ever. And then you and I were chatting right before we started recording. It sort of makes you feel like you're the only one.
100%. Yeah.
Because no one's talking about it. And then you're feeling like this after your show, and it seems like everyone else is doing great. They're on Instagram, they're posting their stage pictures, and it seems like they're super positive about everything. And you're like, damn it, I guess it's just me, right? That's how you feel. So
100%. Yeah.
Talk a little more about how long did it take you to actually transition to a point where you felt good again and like fairly normal again after your show?
That's a tough question.
Yeah. I'm sure it was a gradual process.
Yeah. With food, it was definitely a gradual process. And now that I'm doing the whole vegetarian thing, it's a whole nother phase of life in terms of making sure I'm getting enough protein and all of that.
Yeah.
But in terms of the whole package and fitness and all of that, I would be 100% honest. It's kind of still something I'm figuring out.
Sure.
Like, how do I, and especially when someone's doing all the work for you and telling you what to do, excuse me, it makes it easy because you know what to do and what not to do. And then now you have to do it yourself. And I'm going to plug my light back in. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
You have someone doing it all for you, and now you have to figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
And it's just tough. It's tough to get. And you had said you think you're not going to care as much. And that's so true. It feels like you're trying to grasp at those same results, even though those aren't really attainable for what you're doing. So if you're just trying to be your healthiest self, you're not trying to compete again. In the back of your mind, you have these bomb ass results. So I feel like in the back of your mind, you're reaching for those still. Yeah. Even though it may not be what you want. It's embedded into our minds that is a healthy, beautiful person on stage, right? So you're constantly grasping to be that best version of yourself, even if you don't really feel that way. Yeah. Because, looking at myself on stage, it's like, damn, I look good. And I'm sure you look at your stage pictures and you're like, damn, like I was ripped. Like I've seen your pictures, like, dang, right? So you're in the back of your mind, you're grasping at that moment of fulfillment, right? Like that, getting on stage is a huge accomplishment, even if you don't place. And when you have such big success, I feel like you continue to grasp at that moment. So integrating back into a normal lifestyle, excuse me, even if you're not going to compete again, is definitely a gradual process. I would say that I'm definitely in a healthier headspace than I was 6 months ago. I'm not afraid to have a donut every Friday with my kids, which is something that I do. I get my kids donuts every Friday. I'm not afraid to have pasta for dinner. I'm not afraid to have 2 glasses of wine or whatever. But just kind of integrating back in that, like I said, that physical aspect of it, like lifting weights and riding my bike. Because when I was weight training, I felt amazing. And that was before I had my amazing results. So for me, it's kind of, I'm still trying to get to that place where I'm confident in my weightlifting again. And I feel like I know what the hell I'm doing again on my own. So sure. It's definitely a gradual process, and I'll be honest, but you just got to keep pushing forward. Yeah, no, I agree. So it sounds like the nutritional side
sort of return to a base level of normalcy before the physical side, the training side? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
For me, yeah, definitely.
I mean, it makes sense if you're someone who, I mean, for me, it's different because I'm a coach. I just have this like endless library of exercises in my brain at all times. But if you're someone who's not used to having a program like you had, and then all of a sudden that program goes away, I mean, you could always reuse it, but like you said, you're not going for that specific goal anymore. So that wouldn't make sense either. So I totally get how that could.
And it's funny you should mention that because Mike actually asked me, he was like, can you print out all of Neil's exercises? So we actually have my entire exercise plan for competition printed out on paper on our pin board in our workout room.
That's awesome.
And like, we all kind of pick from it because it has such great exercises, right? Like our 13-year-old will do stuff off of it. It's so funny. And I told Mike, I was like, you know what, for Christmas, I'm just going to get you like a training session with Neil and you can just figure this out on your own. But I'm like, it's funny because like, that is what I fell back on right away. Right. Like I was like, okay, well, I'll ride my Peloton for 30 minutes and then I'll do, you know, upper body or whatever was on the calendar, you know, and it's like, okay, well, this, you know, I can modify it to kind of fit, but you know, you just kind of have to learn how to, like with food, like you're more of, I mean, you're a coach, so you're more well-rounded, but I am more on the nutrition side, which I think that's why I was able to integrate back into the normalcy of nutrition. Prior to fitness. So, yeah. Yeah.
No, I agree though. Regardless of who you are, it's a process because like I write nutritional programs for people all the time and I have a really good grasp on my own nutritional needs and exactly what and how much of everything I should be eating, but it just takes time to get back to where you feel.
It does. Normal. Yeah. Cause it's ingrained in your head, you know, it's coming off of prep is rough.
It is. It's almost like there needs to be some type of rehabilitation program for people after prep. Kind of like people that come back overseas after being like in the military. we need like a reintegration program.
That's literally. So true. It's hilarious, but it's like, oh my gosh, if there was a program, such a program, I would have signed up so fast.
Definitely gives me some coaching ideas for the future for sure.
Right.
Okay. So here's a question for you. Do you think if you could go back in time, not compete again now, but if you go back in time and relive it, is there anything that you think you could change about your prep to minimize that impact? Or do you think it's part of the process?
Yes and no. I think it's definitely part of the process and it's definitely something that you have to be prepared for. And in saying that, I think that I would have prepared myself better.
Okay.
How I would have done that, I'm not 100% sure. But if to anyone out there that's thinking about competing, you need to have a plan for after prep. You need to have a plan for after this stage. And you need to understand that even if you have a plan, you're going to be down. It's going to be hard. It's going to be an integration process to get back to normal life again. So I think that if I were to go back in time and do it again, I would have a nutrition plan and a fitness plan. I think I would have kept you as my coach for another month or two to help me integrate back into normal life. Like, okay, Brittany, this is what you need to eat now. This is kind of like a skeleton of what your diet should look like. This is what your workouts should look like. And something that I could carry with me to kind of maintain where I wanted to be physically. And I'll be 100% honest, that's still something that I'm like, okay, maybe I should. And I tell Mike, it's so funny. We talk about you a lot. I mean, we follow you, we've always supported you from the beginning.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
And a couple months ago, Mike's like, okay, we're going to, get back to our meal prep. We're going to, hit the gym in the morning together, here at the house. And if we're not where we want to be in a month physically, we're going to call Neil. And, you know, the holidays came and, you know, here we are.
Of course.
But it's still something that we're like, you know what, we should probably do that. And my husband is the person who, if he doesn't have someone telling him what to do, he just doesn't do anything. So I'm always just like, I'm going to call Neil for you. Like, but
no, that's great. Yeah. That's great. Even if I'm physically not your coach, I love that the threat of calling me is motivation for you guys. Like that's awesome to me.
Right.
I love hearing that.
So like I said, it's still something I'm like, cause you know, doing this whole vegetarian thing and wondering if I'm doing it right. So I may be in your inbox pretty soon.
That sounds good to me. No. And if I could answer my own question, I would say, yes. And for future clients, as specifically as your coach, I wish that I had, I mean, whether I'm actively your coach or not, whether you're paying for another program or not, I wish I had followed up a little more thoroughly and been a little bit more hands-on after the fact, even if it's just a simple like, hey, Brittany, how are you? Justin, how are you doing? And knowing what I do now about that transition phase out of prep, that's definitely something that I'm going to do more for prep clients, is that sort of, whether they're paying for it or not, you know, just that sort of reintegration process, I think is so important.
Yeah.
It's so important.
I just have to say though, I was your very first bikini. Was I your first bikini client?
You were. Yes, you were.
Yeah. So, I mean, this was a new process for both of us.
Yeah.
I was your first, you know, and you hadn't done a competition like you just did. Yeah. So we were both kind of walking through this together for the first time. And I have to say, like, for two people walking through it in this capacity for the first time, and the client coming out placing in all three categories, I think you did a damn good job. Like,
I think we both, I think we both kicked some ass for sure.
Yeah, we did. We
definitely both kicked some butt. That's for sure. Yeah. So tell me more about the vegetarian thing. How long has this been going on?
So I started October 1st.
Okay.
And it's just like, so I've never been a big meat eater. Like I've never liked steak. I mean, growing up as a small kid, I only really ate chicken, right? Okay. I would have a hamburger every once in a while. And as an adult, it's the same thing. Like I'll eat tilapia or salmon if it's cooked right, chicken, ground turkey. I mean, and this was even something with prep where I was like, Neil, I'm not eating that. Like I need another option.
Now that you say that, I've forgotten that, but now that you say that, I remember you being a little unsure about all the meat. Yeah. Yeah.
So I've always I've just not been a big meat fan. And in that you get tired of chicken and fish and ground turkey. And part of the integrating and kind of reevaluating, I was like, you know what? I need something for lunch that I'm actually going to want to eat. And I am like burnt out on, you know, chicken breasts or, you know, a cold cut sandwich or whatever I was eating then. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try. And I mean, as a kid, I tried to do the vegetarian thing, obviously not very well because I was a child, but
sure.
I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this and I'm going to really go for it. And I feel amazing. And it hasn't been hard for me because I love greens. I love vegetables. I love lentils is like one of my new favorite things. I am not a tofu eater. I will not eat tofu. Does not have a significant enough protein content for me to feel the value in it. No. So like for lunch, I'll have a big salad full of veggies with some hard boiled eggs as my protein. I'll put in some beans in there for my protein also. And like a really light balsamic dressing. Like it's freaking amazing. And I can prep it in advance. You know, I have plastic containers full of my greens. And then I have in my fridge other containers full of different veggies. I have hard boiled eggs that I can make it real quick. And it's been easy with the family too. Like I will have one meal a week where it's a vegetarian meal with the family. Mm-hmm. And then everything else, like I'll have Mike grill some fish for the kids or I'll make some chicken, you know, but I have plenty of veggies and quinoa or rice or whatever it is for myself. So it's funny. I mentioned my mom and my sister are still here. Last night we had for dinner, I made an Asian pork with rice and this Asian slaw. And then I also made some vegetarian pot stickers, and I also made Brussels sprouts. And my mom was like, gosh, that's a lot of veggies. And I'm like, okay, well, as someone who can't eat the pork, I need other options. Like this is how it works. There's lots of food on the table. I get it, but I need it because I can't eat the other stuff. Right.
This is the main thing I'm eating.
I don't. And that Asian pork was one of my favorite things. Yeah. It was one of my favorite things to eat, but I'm not even interested in eating it.
Yeah.
I feel good with what I'm doing in terms of being a vegetarian. I don't miss meat at all. But like I said, I've never been a huge meat fan. So for me, it's probably a lot easier than someone like yourself who probably really enjoys meat, right? Like it's easy for me.
Yes and no. Like I hear what you're saying about chicken breast and fish, especially right after prep, getting really burnt out on that for sure. Yeah. But no, that's great. And it sounds like you're doing it the right way. I think a lot of people, when they go vegetarian or vegan, they eat a diet that consists 90% of tofu and the other 10% is like weird frozen fake crap. Meats. Yeah, exactly. Then they just grab it because it says vegan on the package. But it sounds like you're eating a lot of really good whole food sources of protein and everything else. Another thing a lot of people don't realize, because the biggest concern with someone who's vegetarian or vegan in terms of protein is getting enough complete protein, because typically most plants don't have a complete amino acid profile on their own. But what people don't realize is by combining lots of different plants, you actually do end up with quite a bit of complete protein just by combination. The other thing they found recently is it doesn't even need to be in the same meal for that to work. So let's say a good example would be rice and beans in combination is a complete protein, even though beans on their own are not, rice on its own is not. But like, doesn't even have to be necessarily consumed together. Like you could have beans with one meal and then you're having rice a few hours later with another meal. They're all still sort of intermingling in your digestive tract. So you're still getting the benefit. So it's not as dire as I think a lot of people make it seem. And it is super doable. There's a right way to do it for sure. And it sounds like it's just a better way for you personally to eat. Like, sounds like just based on your preferences, it's better for you, which is awesome. Do you notice a difference in like, how you feel in terms of just overall digestion, and like, do you feel better gut wise too, eating less meat?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. I also have supplements that I take as well to help me, because I've always had issues with digestion. Like my gut health has not been the best in the past. So I think a combination of the change in my diet and the supplements I take to help with that I've noticed a huge difference, and that's been awesome. Really great. Yeah. That's
awesome. Yeah. I'm a big believer in there's no good cookie cutter approach to nutrition.
Yeah. Because everybody's different.
Yeah. Everybody's bodies are so different. So to say that you should be eating how I should be eating, it makes zero sense, and vice versa makes zero sense. Yeah. Well, that's really good to hear, Brittany, that you've kind of found a good system of eating that seems to be working really well for you. Yeah. That's awesome. What would you say? So you said you don't eat tofu, which I appreciate because tofu is disgusting.
It is.
What would you say is your main protein source, just for people out there that are considering going vegetarian, but they're still concerned about their protein?
Yeah, I would say eggs for sure, for breakfast. And like I said, I put them in my salads too. Beans and rice. And one of my lentils is one of my really big favorites right now. I have a really good recipe for chili with lentils, and the kids love it. So that's a huge win as a mom. So
Nice. Oh, that sounds
Yeah.
awesome. All really, really good choices nutritionally too.
Yeah.
I love it. Cool. So speaking of food, let's go the opposite end of the spectrum now. You mentioned earlier briefly your epic cheat meal post contest.
Mm-hmm.
I've been asking, well, you're my second guest, so both guests so far, but I'm planning on asking all of my contest prep guests, what is your biggest, gnarliest, nastiest cheat meal that you can remember?
So that would definitely be right after the show. We went to the Matador. And it's funny because when I was talking to you, when I was prepping, I remember when you did your very first show way back when, you're like, I went and I got this huge plate of Mexican food. I didn't even wash off my spray tan. So we went to the Matador and I ordered the biggest burrito. Like it was massive. And I am the person that will eat like half and be done. Like I'm pretty sure I ate like 80% of this burrito. Like all the burrito, all the beans and rice. And then of course I had a couple drinks, and then I ordered a pizookie, which is a cookie on a skillet with ice cream on it, which I definitely couldn't finish, but oh my gosh. It was, I have pictures, they popped up in my memories the other day of me just like eating this burrito, of course with a fork because I couldn't pick it up because it was so big. And I'm just like, you know, and I'm orange still, all of my makeup is still on, my hair is still done. And I'm just like this big, nasty burrito, right? It was so good.
It's so awesome.
So good.
That's kind of why I said earlier too, how that was sort of the last meal that I truly enjoyed, because isn't it funny how you can, like, you just came off the stage, you're still riding that high of taking some hardware home with you. And it's like, it's just bliss. It's like an out of body experience.
It really is. That is so true.
Yeah.
So true.
So mine was, I don't think I've said this on the podcast yet. I went and got a deep dish style pizza.
Oh, yummy.
So my dad was with me. He stayed at my Airbnb for the show, and he was on the phone ordering the pizza as we were driving from the venue back to the Airbnb. On the drive, I also had a Tupperware of my mom's homemade cookies in my lap. So I'm driving to the Airbnb eating cookies. That's awesome. That's when the meal started. And then by the time we got to the Airbnb, the pizza got there. We couldn't have timed it better.
Perfect.
And I ate, I thought for sure I was going to be able to finish the whole pizza, but I think I made it through like 2/3. Isn't it funny how, like, did you find too that you feel like you're going to be this bottomless pit where you're never going to get full? And you're not, right? Totally. You're not used to it anymore. And it's like, oh, you get that feeling in your gut sooner than you think you will.
Yeah.
But no, I did a pretty good job. I threw down on most of the pizza. And then because the show was done in sessions because of COVID stuff, I was out of the venue by like 2:30 p.m. I was done by 2:30. So I got lunch and dinner that day. So
lucky.
After the pizza and the cookies, and a couple glasses of really, really good rye that my dad picked out for me.
Nice.
Like, I don't know, 3-4 hours later, I needed some time. Then we went out for Mexican food.
Nice.
And I had just like a carne asada plate, nothing too crazy.
Yeah.
Whole bunch of chips and salsa though.
Yep.
And then on the way home from that, we passed a Cold Stone and I'm like, well, I need dessert for sure. So we stopped and I got a dipped waffle bowl. I think chocolate chip cookie dough, I'm pretty sure. And I could not finish it. I'm not going to lie. I ate like the outer rim of the waffle cone and I ate like the top layer of ice cream, and that's all I could do. I was out. Awesome. I was out. Oh man. But yeah, that first cheat meal is just bliss because the psychological trauma hasn't quite hit you yet, but you're still really craving that food. So
you're riding the wave. Yep.
That's awesome. So another thing that I'd like to get your perspective on, because you are clearly a busy person, you're a mom to 4 humans. And you also run a business from home, which I want to hear more about in a second. So if you could give, especially to like a stay-at-home mom, especially somebody in your shoes, if you could give one piece of advice to that type of person who's considering stepping on stage, what would you tell them in terms of just still being able to be there for the kids, but then also, and maybe not even get on stage, but achieve a big fitness goal like what you had?
So for me, the biggest thing was I got up before the kids got up to do my workouts. So I did my workouts in the morning while the kids were still in bed. And I think that's a really big part of it, to have that time to yourself. Most importantly, it's not even about taking the times away from your kids. If you were to do it while they were home, it's being able to have that quiet time to yourself in the gym, in your home gym, or wherever you work out, but having that time, that peaceful time to yourself. And you can attest to this, working out in the morning is good, especially your cardio. Like that is the best time to do it. So my biggest piece of advice would be to remap out your day. If this doesn't fit now, to wake up a little bit earlier. And I know a lot of people say, oh, well, I can't wake up early. Okay, well then maybe you don't want it as bad. Like maybe this isn't for you. Like if you're going to give a laundry list of excuses, perhaps you're not ready. And that's just the truth. If you're not ready to make it a priority, then you're not ready. So my biggest piece of advice would be wake up early, get your workout in, have that time to yourself, because this goal is for you at the end of the day, right? No matter what your big picture is, it's really something you're doing for you. And then for me, another thing that really made it work was I did my posing at night. Right before my kids went to bed. Cause I had a posing coach as well that I did some in-person, because this was my first time, right? I had no idea what I was doing. So I needed someone to tell me how to stand, which sounds silly, but it's 100% necessary.
So important.
You're thinking about competing, hire a posing coach. That is the biggest thing, because
100%.
You can be in the best shape of your life, but if you can't pose, you're not going to place. So the big thing for me was I did my workouts in the morning while my kids were in bed. I did my posing at night when my kids were in bed. The thing that my kids did see was me eating out of a glass container, all of my meals, but I prepped everything in advance. So I was still able to cook like I normally do, but instead of dishing myself a plate, I was pulling from the fridge and heating up something that I had already made. So
that's awesome.
It's all about your priorities. It's all about planning out your day and planning out your time. And that's huge. And if you're not ready to do that, then maybe you're not ready.
I agree with that. So in that same vein, do you think, because you hear from a lot of competitors that there's really no such thing as balance, right? You hear from most competitors that you can sort of get through it, but there's no way to truly have between business, family life, contest prep, there's no way to have a good balance of all three. Do you agree with that? Like, is there something that has to take a back seat, or do you think you can be great at all of them?
I wouldn't. Off top, I would disagree.
Okay.
Like I said, if you can prioritize your time, if you can plan out your days, I don't think anything should suffer. However, when you're competing, I would say that the one person that probably takes a backseat, if it's anybody, is your spouse.
I agree with that.
Because it takes a lot of your energy. And that's not really something that my kids saw, because when I was melting, you don't melt down in front of your kids.
Right.
You don't necessarily have a hangry fit with your kids.
Right.
You don't necessarily have a meltdown because you can't have a glass of wine with your kids. That is something you save for your spouse, unfortunately. So I would say if anyone's going to suffer, it's going to be your spouse. And if you're thinking about competing, it's something you should probably talk to your spouse with.
100%.
And let them know this is going to be rough.
Yeah.
When I decided to compete, my husband supported me 100%. And about halfway, 3/4 of the way through, he was like, are you going to do this again? It was a little harder than we thought it was going to be, just because we love to have a glass of wine at the end of the day together. And I'm like, if you want to still have a glass of wine, that's fine. But can you like go upstairs? Like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to smell it. I don't want to I just, so it was, there were aspects that were a life change for us.
Yeah. And that, what you just touched on right there is so key, because especially with your spouse, there's moments like that, that where your quality time is so connected to like a certain food or having a glass of wine that just completely goes out the window when you're on prep. And for me and my wife, that's pizza night. Okay. Yeah. We habitually have a night where we order pizza, sometimes two, and we both love pizza. It's like our favorite thing.
Yeah.
So like literally identical experience to what you just described. During prep, she would order a small pizza for herself. And I timed my refeed meal for that same day, but it was like the cleanest sushi you could eat. It was like raw fish on a little clump of rice. And at first that was great, because I'm like, oh, sweet, I get to eat sushi and it tasted good to me. But the longer I did it, I was like, I really wish I was eating that pizza that you're eating. Yeah. So it just ruins, it takes away that quality time.
Yeah, 100%.
It completely changes it. So no, I agree with you. I think if you prep your spouse ahead of time, like you, I didn't realize it was going to be as hard as it was this last prep. But now that, just be warned, if you are thinking of competing, prep your spouse ahead of time and be prepared yourself that that's going to take the biggest hit for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is a lot of really, really valuable information. I could talk to you for probably another hour, but I won't keep you too much longer. I think what you said about life after prep is super valuable for a lot of reasons. And it's going to be really helpful for people to hear that they're not alone, because most of us competitors like to put our best foot forward on social media and pretend to be happy all the time. I think it's even worse. I mean, maybe not, I could be wrong, but I think it might even be worse for like male bodybuilders, because we have this sort of persona of being tough and we don't talk about our emotions, and we're big and strong. So we don't talk about the breakdowns that we have over not being able to have a glass of wine, but we have them too. So totally. Yeah, no, I think it's exactly. We're all human, and coming out of prep is a roller coaster. So
it is.
Yeah. I think that everything we talked about is super valuable, including the stuff about life balance. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add before you go? Anything you'd like to plug? You want to talk about your business a little bit, where people can find you on Instagram, all that jazz. Go for it.
Yeah. So you can follow me. I'm on Instagram at, Brittany E. Young. And like I said, I have a business from home. I decided to partner with a clean living company, which has been a tremendous blessing in our lives. It's allowed me to quit my corporate job and stay home and help support our 4 kids, help, carry the mortgage and all of that stuff. It's been absolutely amazing. I said that I take some supplements for my gut health. That's where I get those. We have everything from probiotics, vitamins, digestive enzymes. We have all of the supplements. And like I said, we're a clean living company. So everything is chemical free, toxic free, responsibly sourced, packaged. Not only just supplements, but we also have skincare. We have pet products. We have cleaning products for the home that are chemical free, toxic free. We also are best known for our collagen. We have a multi-patented in several regions, award-winning liquid collagen. We have one that's performance-based, which I take, and it was a tremendous help in my prep with my knee pain. I was able to ride my Peloton and run again, taking that, which was huge. Obviously, collagen helps with a lot other things than just joint mobility. My hair growth, all of those things, skin. But we also have a weight loss product and a whole line that, I take as well, that helps promote lean muscle. And it also helps inhibit the fat storage, which has been huge for me coming off of prep as well. So all of that. And there is a link in my bio on my Instagram, Brittany Young. So if you guys are interested in learning more about that, you can reach out to me there.
What's the company called?
It's called Modare.
Modare. Okay.
Yeah.
And people can access that through your Instagram bio.
Instagram. Yep.
Got it. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, Brittany. Well, thank you very much again for coming on and talking about all this stuff. It's not easy to be open and raw and real about the psychological and emotional effects of prep. So I really appreciate it.
No problem.
You've provided a lot of value for people for sure. All right, Brittany, I would love to have you back on here at some point if you're ever up for it.
Yeah, I'd love that.
So let's plan on that for sure. Guys, if you got value out of this, which I'm sure many of you did because it was an awesome episode, please comment, share, subscribe, do all the things. I really appreciate it. I don't expect you to do some elaborate social media shout out, but if you could pass it on to even just one or two people that you think would find some value in it, especially somebody who's just competed and maybe is struggling with that transition phase back into normalcy, I think they get a ton out of what Brittany had to say today. So please do all that. It means a lot. And thanks for listening, guys. Thanks again, Brittany. And hopefully we'll have you back on here soon.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. See you later, guys.
Yeah.